Hello, this is Allen Chang from LaunchTabletop, and in this fun and exciting episode, sure, fun and exciting episode, we're going to look at Photoshop and spot colors. So some of you may not realize that Photoshop can do spot coloring. And generally speaking, when we are doing spot colors, a lot of the times, I think people default to using Illustrator for a good reason. I think that Illustrator is still better at color management. In fact, I would suggest anyone who's willing to spend the time to learn use InDesign, but that's a separate video for a future me problem to record. Anyway, so right now we're just looking at Photoshop. So what's the big deal with spot colors? Well, say that you want to do spot UV. And if you don't know what spot UV is, it's the ability to make a print, once you print it, to have a extra varnish effect over the top of like partial glossiness versus matte. You see that in some of the more prestigious looking, high-end packaging. You'll see like the logo is this glossy black and then it's sitting on matte black. So it's like black on black, but one part of it is glossy and it looks really sweet and expensive, well, that would be spot UV. Similarly, if you're doing spot foiling, essentially what the effect is, you have the base cardstock being this chromatic foily paper stock, and you print over the top of it with a white underlayer. And this white underlayer essentially acts as a blocker. That's essentially, it's like blocking out this white. Is printing over anything that is shiny. So then you can then apply your normal art print over the top of that, and anything that is still shiny that wasn't printed over by the white has this shine through. So I'm going to just use a wallpaper thing that I put together a while back for LaunchTabletop. And if you want to create a spot color, what you really want to do is go to the channels. I've noticed that because this is a wallpaper, it's an RGB. So first things first, let's change the mode to CMYK. I mean, spot color can work with, actually, no, I don't think you can do spot color in CMYK mode. But point is, you're in print, so let's do CMYK. So let's first look at what channels are and how you read it. So a channel essentially is colors that are mixed together to create the final image. So in a CMYK color mode, we are the C and Y, and C, M, Y, and K stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. K being black because B is, I don't know, too offensive of a letter to start with, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, we've got C, M, Y, and K. And when you look at a specific channel layer, you're not actually seeing any color. And the reason is because it's a grayscale gradient where black, and this is something that you'll have to kind of, sometimes it works the opposite and sometimes it doesn't. Black in this instance is saying color me in at 100% ink, and white is saying don't ink. So in this particular thing, you're reading this as all of this bit that you see here, that's full on cyan. And then if you look at the magenta bit, then you see this, oh, okay, you've got all of this bit is magenta-y, and this is not so much. Logo, definitely not. Let's have a look at the black section. So the black is, there's a sort of big sort of cloud of black up there, but otherwise mostly it's fairly bright. And if you combine all these different layers together, you make the final image, and the colors then show through. So that's how you read channels. So how do you do spot colors? Well, you go into this little 3-4 line options, and you have this thing called a new spot channel. And in the spot channel, you want to name what the spot channel name spot color is. And generally speaking, as a printer, we're actually adopting spot color not for its original intended use. And I can go through the whole history of why that is, but I won't today because it's really boring and I don't have the brain capacity to explain it. Otherwise, I'll fall asleep. So let's look at what is actually used. So basically what happens is that a printer will get this file and it's going to look at all the different spot color layers. And then the spot color layer will have a name on it. Like I'm going to name this spot color name spot UV, but maybe I have like a combination of spot UV and foil and some weird and disgusting other third process. And you just name them basically. And it's really just an instruction that you're giving to the printer so that they can understand what it is that you're trying to do. So a lot of the case, the color doesn't matter. I know that some printers prefer colors to denote the different processes. Like if you're doing spot UV, use magenta, and if you're doing it for some other process that requires the spot color thing that you're doing here, use a different color or something like that. But all honestly, like in more modern terms, the name of it is pretty self-describing. I mean, it's called spot UV, so what else could it be, right? So the color doesn't really matter. So in this case, I just say yes. And note that it starts with a whole blank white canvas. Cool bananas. Then what you want to do is you want to then paint over the bits that you want glossy. So maybe I want the logo glossy. Maybe it's really terribly done. But I'll let the art folks do the art thing. And, you know, you've got plenty of tools they can do to make it less weird than this. So I'll leave you to decide how you want to do that part of it. But the thing about this kind of color channel is that it's, you know, gradiented. So if you wanted to provide a little bit more sort of gradation to your cool and awesome thing, then by all means do so, especially for spot foilers. You can do some really cool and crazy effects by doing that. 50%, 100% gradiented all the way till you're happy with it, whatever you want. And that's a spot UV. Now you turn that channel off, obviously it's fine. Turn that on and it looks gross as far as, you know, visually, this is what it looks like. But bearing in mind that this is a separate process layer, so it's easy for the printer to be able to yank that out. And I'll show you that right now. What I'll do now is I'll actually save this as a PDF, which is something that I'm sure will be familiar with. I'll just save that as the original one as PDF, replace that. I was toying around with some previous examples. I'm going to tick off preserve Photoshop capabilities. When you do that, when you preserve things, you're basically just embedding the entire Photoshop file inside of the PDF, and it blows out the actual file that you're sending to the printer. And the printer, depending on the kind of printer that they are, they probably don't care for it. So let's go to Acrobat, because Acrobat has neat inspection stuff for print production use. So if I click on my tools, use print production, click on that, and then I have a look at my output preview, and you can see, oh, cool. There's this spot UV thing here. And obviously, when I'm checking out all the spot plates and I'm printing, I'm using the C, M, Y, and K ink to print my stuff. This will never accidentally be printed because literally there is no spot UV plate ink, you know, barrel the printer is using it to mix in. You literally have to create that as a separate process. So that's why it's a print safe method of instructing printers how you want things done, because this will never, even if the printer forgot that there's a thing there and they just push the print and push it through the pipeline, that's fine. This will never show up. So that is how you know that you've done this thing correctly. But wait, you ask, does that mean that I can make die lines using Photoshop? No, you cannot. And the reason is because Photoshop is a raster or pixel-based image editor. And die lines need to be vector objects. Why that is? Well, vector objects essentially is a, I won't go into the details, it's kind of out of the scope of this particular video, but suffice to say, the best way to think about it is our machines that are actually creating the cuts of your work needs to be able to read the die lines to know where to cut, essentially. So pixels is a image concept, pixels, whereas vectors is like a mathematical object where it tells you it's a square of this dimension and this size, and mathematically a machine can read that and know, oh, this is how I cut things. Just like a 3D printer. You can't just send a Photoshop JPEG file to a 3D printer and you will know how to read it and turn it into something. You need to give it a 3D object model that you can interpret and understand. And that is why your die lines has to be a vector object in spot color again. And why does it have to be in spot color? All the reasons I mentioned previously. Hopefully this gives people some insight into how you could use spot color to do special processes within Photoshop without having to then go outside of Photoshop and use Illustrator or other processes to do the thing that you can already do in Photoshop. Hope that helps. Bye.